Some final questions. The church in Israel, the church is not Israel, and therefore, is Israel a nation? Does a nation need laws about murder? Does a nation need laws about theft? Does a nation need laws about rape? Is a church a nation? The church is not a nation, and so it doesn't do justice, and the church doesn't have courts per se in a civil sense. And so you've got to make a distinction between Israel and the church. And so Israel's going to have some laws that are nationalistic laws that are not there. What are the differences? Israel's a nation. The church is an assembly, a group of people, and so it's different. You got to separate it. One of the basic things I look at is the underlying principle. In a lot of these laws, is their culture 3,000 years ago very different than our culture? So how do you take these laws out of Deuteronomy and apply them to today? By the way, did Paul apply them in the New Testament? Does anybody remember that don't muzzle the ox while it treads the grain? Is that applied in the New Testament, I believe, to somebody that's serving for Christ, somebody that's working for you? Should you feed them and take care of them? In other words, should you pay the person that's doing you a service a decent wage? Should you pay the person that's doing your service for you a decent wage? Just as the ox, you don't muzzle the ox that treads the corn, so the person that works for you is doing the work should get some of the rewards for that. And so it's applied like that in the New Testament to the elders and stuff of the church, that if they work for the church, then they should be paid. So you look for the underlying principle. What is the underlying principle of divorce? The Old Testament allowed for divorce, but Jesus said what? Let me hit this next one. Jesus said what about this issue with what is the relationship of culture and the expression of the law? Jesus said God allowed for divorce. Why? Because of the hardness of your heart. Because of the hardness of your heart. Does God approve of divorce? No, God doesn't like divorce. In Malachi, God says he hates divorce. But yet he allowed it because what? Because of the hardness of your heart. Now what does that mean? Because if he didn't allow for divorce, what would they do? They would kill each other. And by the way, does that happen even till this day? I just was thinking about, do you remember that case in Tennessee where this woman said that the guy was complaining about her burnt food? And so it was a 12-gauge shotgun. The guy was in bed. Bam, bam, shoots this guy in the back while he's in bed because she burnt the stuff and he said something about it, okay? So, you know what I'm saying? There's conflict in marriage, and if you don't allow for divorce like that, people will kill each other, and they do until this day. So that doesn't mean God approves of divorce. So you look at the underlying principle. The underlying principle is, should marriage be a place of harmony and love between two people? Yes, but it isn't always that way. And because it's not always that way, you got to make things to take realistic positions. Otherwise, they're going to kill each other. So allow them, if it gets up that high, if the noise gets up that high, allow them to divorce. It's better to be divorced. What's the underlying principle? It's better to be divorced than it is to be dead, right? Would you acknowledge that? It's better to be divorced than to be dead. And so this is, and so the law is made. Not that he likes divorce, but it's made because of the underlying principle and stuff. So those kind of things. This one's a new one. The law is a value signal. In other words, the law shows what God approves of and what he values. You got two wives in a polygamous situation. Which one does God stick up for? The unloved wife. Okay, does God protect the underdog? Okay, would that be the underlying principle? Does God protect the underdog, the unloved wife, and he makes these laws that help those people that are the poor and the suffering. And actually Deuteronomy is full of that. So the law is a value signal more than that, these are legal requirements that they've got to do this. They've got to kill the false prophets. They've got to kill the idolaters and things. It's a statement of values that idolaters and false prophets are really bad, and God doesn't like them in that type of thing. Israel is not America. America has prisons, and so we can solve some of our justice issues by putting people in prison. But by the way, is prison always... How many of you would rather have immediate justice than to go to prison for a long time? Yeah, would it almost be good to take your medicine and get it over with than to sit in jail for 2 or 3 years, 4 or 5 years, 10 years? Okay? So you need to think about that in terms of, how justice is distributed. And I'm not sure the prison is always as fair as we think to make it and stuff. So these are some of the things that rattle the bones. I've not got solutions for all these things. I just kind of wanted you to get, to see some of these things, to think about some of these things, and to say, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. Now, contextual. Sometimes the Bible itself clashes. In the Old Testament, were the Jews to eat ham? Were they to eat lobster? Were they to eat catfish? They were to eat kosher in the Old Testament. Kosher. In the New Testament, are we told that we don't have to eat kosher? We're not Jewish. We're not Jewish. We don't need to eat kosher anymore. And in Acts chapter 15, you get this clash where Peter is told to get up and eat things that are not kosher. And God says, no, Peter, these guys are Gentiles now that are coming into the church. And the Gentiles don't have to eat kosher. It's okay. And so there's this clash between Old Testament and New Testament. New Testament then says, okay, it's time, it's time for change. The Gentiles are coming in. They don't need to be circumcised, and they don't need to eat kosher and stuff. And all God's Gentiles said, amen. So anyway, okay. So do you see what I'm saying? So there's transitions in time. There's transitions over time with some of these things too. And you've got to ask developmental questions. Okay. This has been pretty hard stuff. And I'm not saying we solved everything here, but one of the things we did solve is that's the end of Deuteronomy. Okay. And actually, it's terrible. The book of Deuteronomy is a wonderful book. It's a book of covenant renewal where Moses is giving the leadership transition to Joshua. And he renews the covenant and he summarizes Israel's future, sets up the institutions for Israel in the future. It's a really wonderful book. And love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul is there. And so that's a big deal.